What if there were a big pipeline of crude oil going through North Dakota all the way to Illinois that was going to disrupt unbelievable amounts of people's homes and livelihoods? Have you heard of it? Did you know there were protesters? Did you know people were being pepper sprayed? Did you know they were being attacked by dogs of the people laying the pipelines?
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
All while ferreting out the bottom line.
On all topics, controversial, bizarre, and taboo. Interviewing movers and shakers, agitators and muckrakers.
But that doesn't answer my question. That is all I'm answering.
With me, Gary Harrison, as your guide.
Oil, really the bane of our existence. Climate change, global warming, all of it very real. In fact, 99.999% of all scientists agree. Sounds like a commercial for toothpaste, doesn't it? They agree that it's real. And then you have Fox News, and then you have Donald Trump. And then you have real humans who are really, for real, impacted. I want to introduce to you Gray Wolf. Gray Wolf is the chapter director of the Southern California American Indian Movement. He's also been a Native American activist for over 50 years. He's the founder of Idle No More Los Angeles. Idle No More. In other words, no more sitting around, no more being idle. Suit up, show up, time to get into action, right? He's also the curator of the Chumash Indian Museum in Thousand Oaks, California. And I want to welcome you to Go Harrison.
Welcome. Thank you.
Now, today we're talking about what's going on with not only the pipeline and such. We're going to get into that in just a second, including some extraordinary video that just happened recently as people were protesting this pipeline. But American Indians, though we never see you, hear of you, you're not on CNN very often. Maybe if we're selling a fake coin through the Franklin Mint, or Go football team,
right.
But we're talking a huge chunk of this country is always being impacted by all these decisions, right?
Right. And there's more of us than people think.
Yeah.
We are approximately 250 million indigenous people throughout the North American continent. So there's a lot of us still here.
250 million. The total population of the U.S. is 327 million. Europe is about the same. So we're looking at a massive continental, I mean, it's incredible. That population size somehow kept, when I say invisible, kept, purposely kept invisible.
Yeah, very much so. And we can't even, we have over 4,000 protesters at the Standing Rock reservation, and nobody says anything about it. In fact, we even protested in front of CNN to try to get attention, and they finally did a couple of stories on the situation.
So we're going to break down what that means. We're talking about the Sioux, among many, many other Indian tribes. Standing Rock, what is going on there? Because, believe it or not, this doesn't seem to be the headline in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. But this is a massive revolutionary thing happening as we speak.
Well, what we try to point out is that environmental issues don't have boundaries. Environmental issues are going to affect everybody, and that's the problem. Is people think it only affects our tribes because it's going through some of the reservations, but it's not. It's going to affect everybody. People are not aware of what is really happening. If I was to tell you that there's a pipeline break, a major pipeline break, almost every single day of the year, you would not believe it. But if you look it up, you will know that's a fact. And so these pipelines, they pollute the land, they pollute the water, and they cause incredible amounts of damage, and most of that damage cannot be fixed. There's parts of North Dakota right now that have been affected by fracking and by the pipelines that are never going to recover, not ever. And that's what we fight against. One of the things that I want to bring up is that we are called protesters. We are not protesters, we are protectors. We're trying to protect the water, we're trying to protect the land, we're trying to protect our heritage and our culture and our traditions. And to be called protesters constantly, that makes it seem like we're just complaining all the time. Well, that's not the case.
One of the great ironies I always find is my people, the white people, the pale faces of the world, endlessly imitating and replicating the things that you enjoy, that you value. But we do it, we rebrand it, and pretend like we're inventing it. Like, I'm going to recycle. I'm going to have clean water. I'm going to do this and that. You've always done that. You've always understood since the very beginning that you are what you drink. You don't poop in your neighbor's drinking water.
Absolutely.
Like common sense, right?
Well, but the funny thing is that you're right. A lot of people want to be native, or Indian, and yet they don't want they want only the good stuff. The noble savage. They want that. They don't want a reservation. They don't want 85% unemployment. They don't want drug and alcohol abuse at a huge rate. They don't want women who are brutalized and abused by non-native men at 5 times the normal. They don't want a high teen suicide rate of 5 times the normal. So they want only the good stuff, see, and they want what they see in Dances with Wolves, but they don't want to see the harsh realities of the poverty of the. I run the propane fund for the Pine Ridge Reservation for the Lakota people, and people don't understand when the propane runs out. The propane company cuts you off in December. You have no propane for heat or for cooking, and the temperatures are in the 20 to 30 degree below zero. So we actually have, in the richest country in the world, people freezing to death, and that is unheard of.
Why is it that we never cover you? We don't talk about you. We don't talk about any of this stuff. We're great with the Kardashians. We're great at gossip. Hell, we'll talk about anybody and everything, Muslims and whatever. But somehow, Native peoples literally don't even exist, and there's 250 million of you on this continent.
Well, it's really easy. If you always hear about remember 9/11, which is the latest one.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to remember about the Jewish Holocaust of 6 million Jews. We have to remember about the Armenian genocide. But when you go to the Native American genocide, which has been approximated at anywhere from 65 to 100 million people, we are told, get over it. That's in the past. And so it's not in the past. It's happened when Columbus set foot on this earth, on our continent, and is continuing to this very day. And people say, well, what do you mean it's continuing to this very day? The government has wanted us to assimilate forever. We won't do that because we are a unique a group of people who have our own ways, our own traditions, our own heritage for thousands and thousands of years, our own spirituality, but yet we are trying to be forced into being what we are not. And that's where the situation is today.
We're talking to Gray Wolf. He's the chapter director of the Southern California American Indian Movement. He's also been a Native American activist for over 50 years and is the founder of Idle No More Los Angeles. In other words, no more sitting around. Let's get into action here. Also the curator of the Chumash Indian Museum in Thousand Oaks, California. And I was just going to relay a quick story about my grandmother.
Okay.
So this is Iowa, which is next to Illinois. By the way, Illinois is where this oil from North Dakota that we're talking about with this pipeline that's leaking and poisoning all the water ends up in Illinois. Next door, Iowa. She is a little girl. Her grandmother says, the Indians used to come by on horseback in the winter, and it's 20 below zero in Iowa, and they would ask for food. And I said, well, why would they ask for food? She said, oh, because we'd killed all their buffalo.
Right.
And I got it. And that was an interesting awakening, some years ago. She got it. But what do you do? And that's kind of what we're talking about, is that what happens to you happens to me.
Right.
The water that I pollute, sure, you may have to drink it, but guess what? So do I. The air has no boundary. It doesn't stop in Ohio, and then the clean air is next door in Pennsylvania. No, it circulates the whole planet. So when we screw you, nature screws all of us.
Exactly. And that's what's happening.
So right now, let's talk about what's going on in North Dakota, because, again, conspicuously missing on purpose. And by the way, this program is one of the only places you're going to hear about this. Go ahead, search everywhere. You're not hearing this story. As we talk to Gray Wolf here, what's going on in North Dakota? It's huge.
We have approximately 4,000 protesters. I said the wrong word. Protectors,
yes.
Not protesters, but people who are there trying to stop this pipeline, which does the polluting, and we are being fought against by the different oil companies and the pipeline companies because it's all a financial thing.
It's a $4 billion cash cow for them.
Yes, and where does the United States benefit in all this? It doesn't. All this oil is going to be sold to China, so we don't benefit. They don't hire that many people. Once the project is finished, there's no reason to keep them on. So everybody's talking about all this economic, benefit for the United States, which there isn't. There isn't. We get the pollution, we get the all the crappy stuff, and other countries get all the benefits. So I don't understand why the United States would even worry about something like this.
Well, because corporations are people too, my friend, according to Mitt Romney, and big oil companies are in fact international. They're countries in many ways. So they do benefit, but their public relations department tells us that it's we the Americans. We're all in it together, like the shared economy. You're part of the shared economy. Go out and get a job. You can share it with us. It's sort of like Uber for everyone. You buy your own car, you buy your own fuel, you can drive your own car, we'll take 50%. And have a nice day.
Pretty much.
Yeah. What's interesting about what they're doing to you that is underreported or simply not reported is they're bringing dogs in, the oil company. They're attacking you with German Shepherds and other dogs. They are macing you in the eyes. I mean, this is violence. It's extraordinary.
How it works is really simple. The federal government doesn't want to look like the bad guy, so they hire an outside security firm, one of the worst security firms possible they hire, and these people have no consideration for humans. They have a job to do, and they're going to do the job. And part of that is macing, innocent individuals and turning dogs, pit bulls and such, Rottweilers, on people.
Sounds like Blackwater, doesn't it? Going back to Iraq and Afghanistan?
It is exactly like Blackwater, because these groups are hired by the U.S. government to do the dirty work so that the U.S. government doesn't have to dirty their hands.
And break laws. So if the cops do it, see, the cops are getting a bad reputation lately, last couple of years, rolling tanks out in small towns. So if you have private organizations do it, maybe that's a civil lawsuit if you're lucky for it to go there.
Well, how's it going to go anywhere when people are not aware that it's even happening? If this was happening in somebody's hometown, then they'd understand. But yet it's happening out here on reservations, and if nobody says anything. I always say this: if there's an event and there's no press, there was no event. It's that simple, and that's what the government is doing: is blocking the. You have to understand that most of the major media corporations are owned by oil companies, and so they will not give themselves bad publicity. So this is where we have the problem. This is why CNN doesn't want to get involved, or a lot of the big stations, they don't want to be involved in this, because that's where they make some of their money from.
You know the big joke, PBS used to be known as the Petroleum Broadcasting Service. Mm-hmm. And for very good reason, is that the message is controlled. When we watch Meet the Press, Face the Nation, any of the Sunday morning famous talk shows, watch the commercials. This is good homework for you. It will blow you away because you've never actually paid attention to this. Every commercial, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, every kind of ballistic missile company, every kind of assault rifle, it's just over the top. There's nothing for like Gold Bond medication for Mildred's ass. It's all super hardcore militarized stuff. And this is kind of the point. If the message is controlled by the guys making the money, the people who are just doing sustainable living, which is what our green movement for the white people is supposed to be all about, all we're doing is mimicking the very thing you're surviving to do.
Right. If you go to, let's say, the largest reservation in the United States is the Diné Reservation, which Diné people are known as Navajos, but that's not really their name. And they don't need anything from anybody. They are self-sustaining. They can live forever, as they always have, and will continue to do. So it's quite funny that people want to mimic our people, yet they're destroying everything that our people are all about. This is the irony and the hypocrisy of a lot of people who say they want to be like us, and yet, again, they don't want to suffer the what it really is to be us.
I just want to know, I mean, this is one of these cool philosophical questions. What is so terrifying about a Native American? I mean, the Muslims are so terrifying. It's on the news 24/7. Everyone else is. The Mexicans. The Mexicans are so terrifying. But you're so terrifying that we can't even say your name. What in God's name are you doing other than, like, reading a book? I mean, I don't even know what you're doing that's so terrifying that we dare not mention your name.
I would like to know, because we are there's 5 levels of terrorist groups. We are at one time considered level 5, which is the highest. Now we're down to level 3. Yet there's no reason for it. It's just because we speak out on injustice, because we want equality for our people, we want fair treatment for our people, and because we ask for these things, then we're considered terrorists. At one time there was 3 major groups that were very active, and that was the Brown Berets, and that was the Black Panthers, and the American Indian Movement. You don't hear about the other 2 anymore. American Indian Movement was the only group that was not destroyed by the government, but we were imprisoned. Today we have Leonard Peltier still rotting in prison after 40-some years, and the government can do things that to you, and it makes you think. See, but then there's guys like me who don't care. And we say, well, I've been harassed constantly for I don't know how many years, and it doesn't make a difference. I'm so used to it that it doesn't bother me anymore. But you have to stand up and you have to speak out. I tell people this all the time. The reason that people do this to us, the government does this to us, on any issue, not just for the Native issues, but on any issue that you're not happy with, like when you were talking about corporations.
Yeah.
Because we allow it. Because we do not speak out, we're afraid, we're going to lose our job, we're going to lose everything.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. Quickly, website, someplace we could follow you?
Well, you can look up American Indian Movement of Southern California, and that's where you'll find us. I'm also on Facebook. We have AIM SoCal on Facebook, and we also have the Idle No More on Facebook. So you can look us up, and you can find me through there.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Gray Wolf Harrison with you. This is Go Harrison. See you again shortly.
From Hollywood, this is Harrison.
Is the chapter director of the Southern California American Indian Movement. He's also been a Native American activist for over 50 years. He's the founder of Idle No More Los Angeles. Idle No More. In other words, no more sitting around, no more being idle. Suit up, show up, time to get into action, right? He's also the curator of the Chumash Indian Museum in Thousand Oaks, California. And I want to welcome you to Go Harrison.
Welcome. Thank you.
Now, today we're talking about what's going on with not only the pipeline and such. We're going to get into that in just a second, including some extraordinary video that just happened recently as people were protesting this pipeline. But American Indians, though we never see you, hear of you, you're not on CNN very often. Maybe if we're selling a fake coin through the Franklin Mint, or
with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
All while ferreting out the bottom line.
On all topics, controversial, bizarre, and taboo. Interviewing movers and shakers, agitators and muckrakers.
But that doesn't answer my question. That is all I'm answering.
With me, Gary Harrison, as your guide.
Oil. Really the bane of our existence. Climate change, global warming, all of it very real. In fact, 99.999% of all scientists agree. Sounds like a commercial for toothpaste, doesn't it? They agree that it's real. And then you have Fox News. And then you have Donald Trump. And then you have real humans who are really, for real, impacted. I want to introduce to you Gray Wolf. Gray Wolf, what if there were a big pipeline of crude oil going through North Dakota all the way to Illinois that was going to disrupt unbelievable amounts of people's homes and livelihoods? Have you heard of it? Did you know there were protesters? Did you know people were being pepper sprayed? Did you know they were being attacked by dogs of the people laying the pipelines?
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling